Your homework should look the same as what you already had written from last week. And that is intentional, but still write it down, please. So a lot of us already have it, so we got into class already. A couple people asked me about dilation, dude. If you want to know about that, that's from high school math. Talk to me at some point. We today... Are we good? Can I do it? It's also over now. So, yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, you can give this back to me at the end of class. I didn't get a chance to check because I saw them. I have this one's yours, and this one's yours, and this is Hopkins. Yeah, no. Give me that at the end of class. Okay. You need to check it. Today, we are doing this. So, Cecil's Tightrope is one of my favorite lessons so far. I haven't experienced the whole thing. But I want to review that with you guys and make sure that you are all good on that and answer any questions you might have. I want to go over any questions that you might have from the homework so far, either from the first assignment that we had, like 8 through 17, I think it was, or this assignment. If you have any questions from 36 to 41 or any problems that you think are difficult and you would like me to show you how to do so you can have it done, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, have your math journal up to date and completed, that would be good for you. We need to talk about headers. A lot of us are having issues with headers. So not like playing soccer headers, which that is dangerous. Be careful how you do that. But I'm talking about the title of your assignment header. And then we're going to go to the team test, which is interesting because I saw a lot of different ways to solve these different problems. I'm going to ask some people to be bold if you are so courageous and come up and share your solution process. And then we're going to talk about where we're headed this week and in general where we're headed with the calendar and all that. We're kind of getting into that fall. I don't like to call it the grind, but like you guys know what's going on. You know to come to class, write down your stuff in your plan book. You know we're going to be solving problems as teams and then going over them together. You guys are kind of used to things at this point. We're a month into the school year, a little over a month into the school year. So we're trucking on through. We're 10% done. You guys believe that? Over 10% done. We could calculate exactly how much percent we're done, but we're over 10%. So from Thursday, 221, I guess I should turn this on. Do we have questions from the lesson with Cecil's Tightrope? And I will just go ahead and tell you, there are questions on the test exactly like Cecil's Tightrope, where you have certain lengths, and you have to compose your way across that span given the lengths of the rope. So any questions from, I'll slide it down to this screen, make it easier for people. Any questions from 231 where you guys used Chromebooks and you made Cecil cross? All good there? Any questions from 32 or 33? I know Mr. Smith was with you, but I wasn't here, so I feel bad. Anyone design their own tightrope? Anyone have time to get to that? I didn't know if anyone would have gotten to that this weekend. All right, so let's chat about, really I want to go back to the homework from 211 and 212. Are there any questions from our 8 to 17 assignment? So pull out your math journal. Here's two things I want to check. I want you guys to check, do you have it done? And the next thing, do you actually have an appropriate header? So, if, let's say, this is the top of my paper. Right, imagine that, so it's not there. What should be at the top of the page in your math journal? Or if you start it in the middle of the page, that's fine, but you still need to like draw a line across or something. What should I have there for this assignment? Alex, give me one thing.
A header.
Well, what? So give me one piece of the header. What should be part of that?
The number.
The number. So what do you mean the number? Yeah, so depending on what assignment you're looking at, like this one would be 2.1.1, and then the assignment, this is not tonight's homework, this was not last night's homework, we're talking about the first homework in your math journal. So flip back to the beginning of chapter 2. If you're like looking at me with confused eyes, you should, it starts with question 2-8. So if you are like really confused right now, you probably don't have a good header. Because if you can't find the beginning of your assignment, that's a clue that you don't have a good header.
So you should have 2.1.1, numbers 8 to 17. What else would go in a header? A good header should also include, yeah. Well, yeah, you can put homework or practice or whatever you want. So we could put like homework. I don't actually require that. That's great if you do. I won't embarrass them, so let's say John, because I don't think we have any Johns in this grade. One student, as I was checking their math journal, every header said homework for John, homework for John, homework for John, homework for John. Like, that doesn't tell you anything, right? It doesn't tell you what the, like, when it was, what the assignment was, any of that. Alan, what else should it have? A date. When was this assigned? What was the date that you were working on this? Anyone have it on theirs? Yeah. 9/18. So I always put that on my upper right corner. Even though we know we're in 2017, we're not going to leave there very quickly. I would always put month, day, year, because what if we're in chapter 9? That might get confusing. Now it won't be September when we're in chapter 9, but just saying. Dates, safest way is have month, day, year. You'll see me write dates with just periods. You can do that too. Or if you want to write it the European way, which I would not advise to do this because you'll confuse people, you would go from least accuracy, from most to least, day, month, year, the 18th day of September of 2017. Yeah, but I would not advise doing that. But that's how other people do it. Any questions? Then everybody's header should have 211. So if it doesn't, do it now. Because for chapter 2 math journal checks, I'm going to be looking for this. Should have 2.1.1. Should have numbers 8 through 17, and should have the date 9/18. You don't have that on the top of this assignment. Please do so. Then, any questions from 8 through 17? I'm trying to help you guys out. I do not, I'm getting more and more specific with math journal checks, but that doesn't mean I want to give out more progressives. It means I want to see you guys grow and do well at this. We all have 8 through 17 completely answered. If I spot check an individual problem, no one's going to have any issues. We have no questions from this whole assignment. Guys, I've been at this for a few years. I bet somebody has a question. You're sitting there and you're like, man, I wish somebody would just ask a question, because I don't want to be the first person. Be bold. Let me know what I can help you with. Two through 11. Oh, 11 through 7. I don't know. I don't know where you would have gotten 11 through 17. It was 8 through 17, right, guys? Yeah, so it's okay. I mean, just fix it. So I'm not checking journals today. Just get out and get it fixed. And you can put those problems at the end of the assignment. You can write a little note or something, but normally I look pretty hard before I put a check minus or anything. That's okay. You can attach that into your math journal if you want, or just fold it and kind of stick it in there, or tape it in, or staple it in. If you need help, just consider me an AM or something. You can help you get it in there. No questions, 8 through 17? Going once. Oh. Thomas had a bag with 7 green marbles, 5 blue, and 4 reds. For each part below, if the marble selected is replaced before the next marble is drawn, find the probability of the given situation. So when we're talking about probability, we always want to look at what we want. I don't know, keep changing my markers. What we want over the total. So probability of any event is the number of times that event can occur out of the total possible times. So my marker went really thick again. So here, what's the first thing you think we need to figure out? total marbles in the bag. We got 7, 5, and 4. How many will that add up to? Sums to 16. So when we look at A, probability of red, how many red are in the bag? 4. So we get 4 out of 16. When we look at B, and we look at probability of red or green, if I don't care whether I get a red or a green, is my probability going to get better or worse? We're going to get closer to 1 or closer to 0? Alex?
You get closer to 1.
Why?
Because you add in both of the probabilities.
Yeah, there's more. Now instead of just red, I can do red or green. There's 7 greens, so I add those to here. And the probability, and we could write this as like R or G, is what, 11 out of 16? And then what about the probability of orange? We'll go ahead and look at C. Go ahead. There's no orange. So if you want to write it in proper fraction form, it'd be 0 out of 16. And always please write the P of. You guys can abbreviate a lot of things, but please don't just write like 0. We want to know what are you saying is 0. And if you want to be accurate, you can say 0 out of 16. There are no oranges out of the 16 total marbles. Or you can just write 0, but 0 out of 16 also tells you what your total was. Other questions from 8 through 17. I wanted to take a little breather here to make sure that we're all good with Chapter 2 math journals as we're headed in. You have 2 math journal grades on math. Check them. They are 2 different things. They cover different problem sets. If you have any progressions, come see me. We'll get you taken care of. 8 through 17. Anything else? All about weight. All right. So the next problem set, check in your math journal. Do you have a decent header for it? If not, we need to fix that and get a decent header for it. This was 26 through 30. So if you're starting in the middle of a page, and I wanted to review this too because some people like just transition straight from one homework to the next one, and it's very confusing to check your math journals. You want to make some kind of notation that we're changing. This is something different. So a line across, a squiggly, a picture of a stick figure fishing. I don't care what you draw. Something to delineate this is a different assignment. Then, what section was this? 2.1.2. And the homework assignment was 26 through 30. What was the date that you guys were working on this? 9, 20, 17. Make sure your header looks like that, please. I'm giving you plenty of time. So what I'm going to be looking for in the next math journal check is if you don't have this, it's like we did it all together in class and you chose not to. So then, do we have any questions 26 through 30? 26. Talking about repeating or terminating. 27, exactly like we did in class. Please make sure you have the web. If you write out the verbal, that is awesome. I do not always require that because sometimes we're just working quick. But A is asking you what is the verbal. So how would we say this properly? Because we don't say 0.625. If we're actually trying to say the proper name, I mean, we could say 62.5%, but if we're going to try to say the name of the portion, what would we say there? We normally name the fraction, and that would be, what's the name of this fraction? 5/8. So A, what it's wanting, all you would need to have for 27A, if you want to check, is just written out 5/8. Spinner probability. Filling in. Be careful with these. I have some people just like not really trying. There are going to be number lines on your test. We will be taking an individual test for Chapter 2. So if anybody has questions, now's a great time to ask. Anything? We must have a class of really smart kids in this machine. And guys, I say that kind of like off the cuff, kind of jokingly. Like asking questions actually makes you a lot smarter. So not saying like, well, if I want to be the smart kid, I should just find a question to ask. But the way you get smarter, the way you grow with your intelligence is knowing what you don't know. And you're saying like, yeah, I don't know how to do this. Show me. Like, that's your job. Somebody do this. This is why I love school. Like going to school, it's somebody else's job to make sure I learn new skills. That's pretty cool. All right. If there's nothing else there. Then the lessons from last week. This homework did not have to be, well, actually, I could check it today because that's 2 business days, but I'm not. Are there questions from 36 through 41? Generic rectangles to complete the following multiplication problems. Are we using generic rectangles correctly? What are generic rectangles, you might be asking? Where do I look if I have a question on homework and I don't quite know what to do? Alex? In the math notes, or Delaney is holding up her toolkit because these math notes boxes are in your toolkit. So, sorry if you're watching the video, you're totally not seeing anything I'm doing on my TV. The generic rectangle breaks our units apart. The bigger our units, the bigger our rectangle is going to be. So, please spot check 36. Even if you haven't started the assignment, let's just be honest with each other. It's okay. We got to do it at some point. But spot check 36. Did you break that apart and make a 50 and then a 4 multiplied out with a 30 and a 2? We fill it in and then we figure out the entire sum of the box. This is what we want you to be able to do mentally pretty quickly, because can I do 32 times 54 in my head? No. You can. Good for you. I don't really care. That's kind of one of those, like, you don't need to have those skills if you have the skills to break it apart and make it all together. Can I do 5 times 3? Yeah, that's easy. 5 times 3 is 15. Add the 2 zeros on, because I can't just get rid of the zeros. Can I do 4 times 3? Yeah, that's 12, and I have a 0 to put on the end. Can I do 4 times 2? Yeah. No? Well, we'll work later. Can I do 5 times 2? And then put that 0. Now, this throws people off. I already have a 0. You have to put another 0 on the end of that. Now we sum the entire rectangle and get our answer. Please make sure that's how you're solving these problems. I will be spot checking those problems, not for accuracy, but did you actually set up a generic rectangle to break apart your multiplication? I'm telling you now, I'm checking 36. So please make sure you have it correctly completed. If you don't, ask questions. Excuse me, ask questions right now. Patrick. You mean lattice?
Lattice,
Yeah. If you don't know it, it's totally fine. Some elementary school teachers taught it, some didn't. This is the same thing. It's also known as array multiplication. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can probably ask stupider questions. That wasn't very stupid. Really wasn't stupid at all. You've been away from that for a long time. We asked you guys to remember a lot of vocab. What other questions from that homework? I bet there are people in here that don't have it done because it was just assigned on Thursday and Friday was a cookout. If I honestly asked you, I bet at least a third of us don't have it completed. Okay. It's better if you have it done, obviously. But even if you don't have a problem done and you think it looks challenging, ask me. We got a little bit of time. Yeah. 36 to 40. Yeah, the one that is reassigned for tonight. So this goes back to using your toolkit in your math notes boxes. There is a box in your toolkit. New page. New blank page. There's a box in your toolkit all about it. Excuse me, I got hiccups this morning. All about scaling axes. The thing that box will tell you is you need to figure out the span of distance you need to cover and how many gaps you have to do it in. So what we have in part D is this, right? We have a span, a gap of what? No, like distance. 10, right? It goes from 0 to 10. Then how many intervals, or how many spaces or gaps, or whatever you want to call them, please do not look at the tick marks. It's easier to think about spaces. How many? Anyway, everybody. 3, right? So we have 10. I got to cover a gap of 10 with 3. Think about it like this. I need to go 10. I get 1, 2, 3 equal sized jumps. If I know I went 10 and I jumped 3, how do I split something up? That math notes box will tell you to calculate any of these. We'll take the total distance, divide it by how many gaps we have, and this gets a bad number. Not bad necessarily. He's not like evil. But it's repeating. It's no fun. Kind of fun, depending on your outlook. But this would then be 3.33 approximately, or repeating, which then makes the second one 6.66 repeating forever, which then the argument would become, well, that's not right then, because this is 9.99 repeating forever. Well, approximately 9.99 repeating forever is 10. There's this, like, and we'll look at that later, but there's this math proof where we can say, like, well, is 0.9 repeating forever 1? And we looked really briefly at it when we were cutting up all those pieces, that little video that kept kind of zooming in. But that's how we break that up. It's an approximation. Now, we could also use improper fractions to deal with that. But if you're trying to use a calculator and following the math notes box, it'll tell you to do it like this. So this could be 10 thirds. This would be 20 thirds. And then this would be 30 thirds, which would actually be accurate. So if you wanted to use fractions, this would be 10 thirds, 20 thirds, 30 thirds. Other questions? All right, I need team captains, well, not team captains, whoever's paper's on top, to come grab these. Ella, Aubrey, Emily, Alan, Ali, Patrick, Alan, Patrick, Ali, and Emily. Not here. Somebody else from the team. Nathan. So, if we can quickly regroup into these groups. So, like Patrick, who were you with on this test?
I was with Liam, Renat, and
Yeah, like look at your papers.
Kim,
And then, if you remember, just go to who you were with. If you don't remember, like Nathan has it or Alan has them, check with them who they were with. We're going to review the Chapter 1 test. So try to go, so pick up your stuff real quick, reallocate. So people who I just handed test to, only one of you can be at a table group. So like the 3 of you got to split up and go to 3 different table groupings. Really, or if this is just too complicated, just make sure that everyone has their own test. So people who were the submitters, whoever's test ended up on top, redistribute people's individual tests. So everybody should have their test in front of them by the time we get seated and set. Yeah, just undo it. Just rip it. It's all good. These are yours to keep forever. There's not going to be a grade from Chapter 1 except for the math journals. There's not going to be an assessment grade from Chapter 1. So it doesn't matter if you rip this. Everybody should have a test in front of them. So did you rip that apart and give people their tests? Where's our test here? Okay, sweet. So, number 1, it tells you your probability of hitting the shaded spot is a half. Then A moves on to talk about, well, what about this dartboard? Who can explain what you got and why? better than that. We all take 3 minutes to review these problems with your team or whoever you're sitting with at your table groups. I'm going to use cards to randomly call on people to explain things. We talked about this together as teams when we took it. You're going to review it together right now. I want you to be able to describe why your team has the answer that you have. Okay, so take like 2 or 3 minutes to review all these problems real quickly. Don't spend too much time on 1B. We knew that was a challenge problem. Just review 1A and the problem on the back.
And then we got this. Because all we have to do is literally draw a line. Literally draw. And then 3, figure out, find the total.
I got about a minute. Try to wrap up these combos.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I drew a line right there.
All right. Emma, for 1A, what did you guys have? I just shuffled that whole deck. What did you guys have and how'd you get it?
We got 1/3 because the gray region is 1/3 because there are 3 parts in the square and there's 1 chunk.
And the other thing you know about those 3 parts, at least that we see and we assume, what about those parts? They're all, like, as compared to, if you want to, like, have what we're comparing to. Think about the spinner on the back, the parts of the spinner. What about these parts compared to, like, the pieces of the spinner? These are all equal. They're equal sizes, right? So these are the same sizes, which is why I can say 1 out of 3, because all 3 pieces are the same size. So when we go to the back, that gets a little bit tricky, because on that spinner, all the pieces aren't the same size. So before we get down to the spinner, we'll look at 2 though. So we're skipping B for the moment. So flip to the back to look at number 2. Emily Wynn, Jonah's teacher, I think maybe is how you say that, told them to defend 2 fifths being equal to 4/10. What did we do? Emily. Patrick, I don't know. Sorry. Emily's not here. God, no. Same group can't do that. Same group can't do that. We've talked a bunch. I'm skipping people that are the same team. So Penelope. Penelope here today?
I saw it. Yeah.
Penelope skipped tonight. Liam. What did you guys do for number 2?
For number 2, well, Jonah told her, Lydia. So Jonah is confused, right? Or is it Lydia? One of them. So it's literally just 5 boxes, 2 of them. He needs to get like 4/10.
So how did you visually show that?
We just drew a line straight through it.
Drew a line straight through it. Okay, sweet.
No, like horizontally.
So here's the deal. I do that intentionally. When we get to the point of testing, and I hate talking about state tests, but they don't know you. And they're assuming you have as little intelligence as possible. Not joking, sorry, but they are. You have to be really, really detailed. So when you say draw a straight line through it, I know what you're talking about. But we need to say draw a horizontal line through the middle of the figure. Because if you just say draw a horizontal line through it, it could be up there. So I agree. We draw a horizontal line straight through the middle, making now 10 equal-sized pieces, 4 of which are shaded. Any questions on that? All right, on 3, let's see if we can find somebody who's here today. Sorry, Patrick, I'm skipping your card. We've talked about it already. Matt's not here. Is it like Skip School Monday or something? Renard. So, what did you guys get for these question marks? And the first thing they tell us is she had 2 sections exactly the same size. Okay. So actually, before we start, what do we know? The whole spinner together is what? Like if we added up all these pieces, what would we get? I think I'm asking the question poorly. You're right, we have 6 pieces, right? But if we took like a 6, a 6, a 6, plus a third, plus whatever 2 missing pieces we have, think about like pizza. Yeah, we have the entire thing. So I'm just trying to get you, so we have 1, right? From there, we can look at it as 3/3, or 6/6, or 12/12, or whatever denominator, numerator you want to work with. You have all of what you have. So Rob, what did you guys get for your question marks, and how did you get there? You got 1/12 for them? Do you remember, or do you have work written to show what you guys did to get that value? Okay, so we know that there are 2 of those, because we have 1 there and 1 down here. That gives us 2/12. So both of those together are 2/12. How did we get that? We're kind of working this backwards. Right? What do we know about this section of the spinner? My 1/6, 1/6, 1/6. Alex? It's half of it. So when we look at what we have to work with and where my question marks come in, they come from a section that is the other half. So we have a half of the spinner that involves a third and 2 of something we don't know. So we can take our third away from our half. And I just get 1 over -1, right? I know, I made a giant mistake. I said the numerator stays the same in the denominator, I just subtract, right? Because the numerator started the same, and I just... Aubrey, what do I need before I can add or subtract fractions? You can ask your teammates. Yeah, we need common denominators. If you didn't show this on your test, you need to. You need work to support what you did. So when we get common denominators over here, 2 and 3, what denominator do I want to work with? Patrick?
12.
Well, so I would first think 6, right? I think 2 and 3, I can make a denominator 6. But then I realized I have those little chunks left over. What if I go ahead and make my denominator small, like 12? Or, well, big, making the pieces small. Sorry, I said that weird. So, to get 1/2 to 12, we multiply by 6 over 6. To get 1/3 to 12, what do we multiply that fraction by? 4 over 4. So, we used a giant 1 here and a giant 1 there. This becomes 6/12 minus 4/12, leaving us with, this is absolutely wrong, leaving us with 2/12 to be distributed to those two slices. Check your paper. Did you have work supporting? A lot of us did not. I did not want to freak people out with this. I did not want to have you guys get down on yourselves. I did not put feedback on you. But a lot of us would have had progressings. You didn't have work to support what you did. You didn't answer things completely. You didn't follow instructions. Whatever it was, realize like a lot of these would have been progressings because you could have done better. You needed more support. So I'm trying to help you guys see what you needed to show if you want to get mastery. Yeah.
You said you might have graded this in abstract ways. How did you grade these?
I didn't actually grade these at all. I just looked at them. I essentially use it as a feedback report. So like, how are we doing? How are you guys doing? I just looked through them. So normally I would glance through them all and then I would go and I would write feedback on each of them based off like either individual problems, like I'd go through all of number ones, all of number twos, or I go like all the front parts. If there's like a bunch of questions on the assessment, I'll go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and give those feedbacks and then do that. Then I go back through everybody's paper and I just look it over again and decide, all right, were they mastered, were they progressing? Because there is no like point conversion. There's no like how many wrong did I get? It's what did you show me you know or don't know. So yeah, I did not want to give written feedback because a lot, like, especially with CPM, Chapter 1 was supposed to ease into things and it was kind of all over the place. I didn't want to freak people out. Like, and I say this would have been progressing, but I don't expect that you've mastered probability skills yet. I don't expect that you've mastered, like, the interval ranges. Like, these different things, I didn't need you to have those mastered yet, which is why I did not grade these, why we're not putting anything in math. We just wanted to have a practice assessment. So then if we look back at 1B, we've got just a couple minutes left, so I might go over this quicker than I had anticipated. Let's just talk about what the answer is. And then we'll work how do we solve it. Patrick, what did you end up getting?
7/8.
7/8. Now hold on a second. If you, like me, struggled your way through this problem, and Patrick spits out the fraction 7/8, and you look at all these numbers and you're like, nope, no way. Don't know how I got there, and I don't care. That wasn't what you initially got, right? That's a simplified answer to a whole lot of work. What was the fraction that came before that? The one with the actual areas. Should be 100. 168 over 200. So when we talk about probability, what we want here is shaded out of, or shaded compared to total. This 168 would be our shaded. This 200 would be our total on the region. I saw a lot of different ways to solve this as I leafed through your papers. Yeah. I think it might have actually been 196. Yeah. It's close to 200. I was checking to see would anyone stick up their hand and tell me what's what. Right here. I think it's actually 196. 192, not 196. So your 200 was approximate, and then you probably took a couple liberties rounding a tiny bit to get to that 7/8. 7/8 is right, but your denominator should have been 192. Now, here's the two main ways I saw people solve this because I'm running out of time. A couple groups acted like the whole thing was a giant square to begin with. Then, the 4x4 squares on the sides were easy to get rid of. They were 16, right? 4 times 4 is 16. So then we took those out of the situation. But to begin with, just to find the whole thing, it was really nice to just have 8 plus 4 plus 4. I have 16 by 16, and we can figure out the whole area. Subtract those squares we got. But then I got to work with the middle. And here are two different ways I saw people approaching the middle. One was to box that out just like that. But then we had these weird little rectangles left over. One of which could have been like there. And here. And those are solvable. Obviously, some of us got the right answer. I did not expect a lot of us to get to the end of this problem. This was just a challenge problem to see if we could work on it. What's another way we could look at that middle? Instead of breaking up into all little rectangles. Patrick? What if I just look at this as a square? Do I know how long this is? 8, right? Do I know how long this is? Can I find the area inside my blue square? Let's imagine it's all shaded for a second. 8 by 8, right? 64 in the square. Can I find the area of these individual triangles? Then just take those away. Quit trying to add pieces together. Figure out, could I solve it easier by just taking something away? Those are yours to keep. If you want to talk about them, I would be happy to discuss those problems with you. Aside from that, please make sure you're caught up on Chapter 2 homework. And you are good to go then. Thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful day. We will be continuing on in Chapter 2 tomorrow. Thank you, sir. Grant, can I have your journal? I'll get it done before I out. Right, you want me to recheck it? Yes, maybe?